You're telling me how to be better. You're telling me, but you're not investing in me. You don't care about me. You just want me to be clean so your world will be clean and your kids can go to a nice clean school and you'll feel safe. That's not the same thing as the love of God. That is not the love of God. That's just morality trying to paint a picture of what it should look like. And I don't think that's the heart of Jesus Christ. Welcome everybody to the podcast, Groomed.Connect. Why am I singing this, Brian? I'm singing today.
I don't know, Mike. You must be happy.
I am happy. I am happy. I'm happy I had a great week. I was up in the O'Neill, Nebraska area doing schools, speaking in high schools all week, 5 days a week. I was out speaking. I got to speak at a church actually on Wednesday night.
Very nice.
St. John Lutheran over there in Concordia, right across the street from Concordia University in Seward, Nebraska.
Yeah, all right.
So that was wild. Yeah, good times. So,
It's great.
yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
we have
we've had a
good
crazy.
friends who live in O'Neill. So
You do?
we do. We do. One of my wife's college roommates lives in O'Neill. So they're very Irish. It's a very Irish town.
But yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really is. There's a big shamrock in the middle of the intersection, the main intersection there.
Yes,
I
there
know.
is. Yes, there is.
I spoke at that high school actually last year.
Okay.
Yeah. I stay there a lot because it's kind of in a area where I can just stay there. There's a Holiday Inn Express there, and then I can just zip out to different places. So yeah. Yeah. Well, Brian, we are gonna address a subject that's a little might probably get us some letters, get some emails, and get some
Yeah.
comments, get some people riled up. We're gonna discuss the
You're suggesting that we haven't already been getting people riled up?
Yeah. Yeah, we have that knack, don't we?
I think we do.
It's our calling. Stir it up. Somebody called me an enema once. They said, "You're like an enema. You go in and you just clean out the shit." That's what they said. It was a church guy too. I'm like, "Thanks."
Uh,
I don't know if I want that anointing. Moon River. All right, let's stop. So we're gonna broach the subject of Christian nationalism. We're gonna talk about, the whole Charlie Kirk thing has really stirred stuff up and got everybody talking, and we just wanna take our approach to it, and Brian's gonna read a, quote from a famous guy.
Yeah. So I ran across this quote on actually one of my old students' Facebook page this week by a guy named Opie Taylor. Oh, wait a minute. His name is Ron Howard. He just played Opie Taylor. So there, I'm dating
Richie
myself.
Cunningham, too. He was Richie Cunningham.
Richie Cunningham. Well, yes, Opie Taylor, Richie Cunningham. So now it's Ron Howard. And one of the points he wrote in this post, I think, was really important for people who, care about their faith and want their faith to be meaningful in a meaningful way in the world. He says, "I am not anti-Christian. I have no desire to stop Christians from being Christians, to close churches, to ban the Bible, to forbid prayer in school, etc." He says, by the way, prayer in school is not illegal. Compulsory prayer in school is. All I ask is that Christians recognize my right to live according to my beliefs. When I get pissed off that a politician is trying to legislate scripture into law, I'm not offended by Christianity. I'm offended that you're trying to force me to live by your religion's rules. You know how to get really upset at the thought of Muslims imposing Sharia law on you. That's how I feel about Christians trying to impose biblical law on me. Be a Christian. Do your thing. Just don't force it on me or mine. What do you think about that, Mike?
Yeah, I mean, I totally echo that. I mean, I don't think that it is our job to force morality on people. It isn't. It's our job to be the morality police, to police everybody's behavior. Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, Brian, my job is to go into schools and to talk to kids about behavior. That's why they hire me, right? They're like, we need to figure out how to get kids to stop bullying, stop vaping, stop, using substances, that kind of stuff. So they're concerned about the behavior. And it never works when you go in and talk about the behavior. you need to talk about the belief, right? About their heart, about, why are they doing what they're doing? And to me, in my own just my opinion, is that when we're trying to legislate righteousness or legislate morality on people, we're trying to get their behavior to change, but we don't care about their heart. But we're supposed to care about their heart, right? Because we're Christians. And so, Jesus did. And so that's where that tension is, right? You can't have one without the other. If you care about their heart and you deal with the heart issue, you're gonna see behavior change. But if you just go after the behavior and you wanna clean up the world and clean up, the schools or whatever, you're really missing the point, right? Because there are reasons people do what they do, and if you circumvent the reasons, then you'll never get real change. You might be able to, you know, use some kind of leverage to get that behavior to change, but all that is behavior modification. That's not a heart change, and that's not Christianity. So I agree with Ron Howard.
Well, and let's talk a little bit about morality for a second before we move on here. I depart from a lot of Christians that I know, maybe most Christians that I know, with this from this sort of attitude that Christianity is about morality. I don't think Christianity is about morality. I think Christianity is about helping people, find wholeness in their life and find healing from all the crap that happens to us, and how to live in a community where you're, loving and caring about one another. Now, to your point, does behavior matter in that respect? Well, sure it does. But that's not the point. The point is something, way deeper than that. And there's plenty of Bible stories that would illustrate that. I'm not going to take the time to go into them now, but this whole focus on morality and forcing people to behave in a certain way, it's very destructive. And it's like you said, you're not really doing anything. You're not accomplishing anything because the real problem is still there.
I mentioned this on the Groomed.Help last week, but I'm gonna mention it again. Sunday morning, I woke up and I just had this desire to look up what Jesus did after John the Baptist was killed. Right? So last week was, the week after, Charlie Kirk was killed. And so there was obviously there's just tons of information one way or the other on, social media is blowing up, all that stuff. Right. So I've been trying to stay away from it, but you can't help it because it's everywhere. And so I was like, okay, what did Jesus do when his cousin was killed? Because that's who John the Baptist was, right? He was the forerunner of his ministry. We all know that, but he was also the his cousin. So he was related. It was more than just a guy, right? So first thing he did was he tried to get away, right? And then when he got away, people found him. And I stopped there for a minute and went, why did they do that? Well, because people need leaders in those moments, right? They're looking for answers when there's a crisis like that, right? And I don't know what the actual crisis was in Jerusalem when John the Baptist was killed. I don't know if they don't have social media there, but like I'm sure there was a rumor mill and there was all this stuff was going on and people were talking and they looked for Jesus. Like, okay, what do you think, Jesus? And instead of him using he had crowds, five thousands of them, because that day he actually fed 5,000. So there were thousands of people trying to find him to get answers from him. And first thing he did was he healed the sick. He healed the sick. He fed the 5,000. He took care of their needs, and it doesn't say that he did any kind of preaching about what happened with John the Baptist and against the government or anything like that. He just took care of people. And then he went at the end of the day back to solitude. He went found a place to pray and be alone with God. And that's what I that's what I think that's what it like he basically modeled for us what what we need to be doing is taking care of people, loving people, showing them the love of God, right? You're not going to be able to legislate a moral or a healing in people's lives. You know what I mean? And I don't know. It just frustrates me that that's where the emphasis goes. Is if we just get these laws passed and we get people to do the right things all the time, then our country's going to be better and we're all going to be Christians and we're going to be happy people. And it's just really ridiculous.
Yeah. Yeah. Think about it this way. Think about if you were in a church and, somebody came in and said, I'm like, I'm mainlining every day. The kind of ethos we're talking about, the bad one, and the church today would say, well, you need to stop doing that because, that makes God angry. Whereas, I think the Jesus ethic would be to sit down with that person and say, tell me about your life. Where's the pain? Where's the pain coming from? Let's
Right.
talk about that.
Well, I'll make it even more direct than that. I was at a school last year and a girl came up to me and said, "I'm transitioning as a boy." And so, I mean, it's right in front of me. She's 2 feet from me. She says this, right? And so I said, "Why?" And she said, "Because when I was a girl, I was raped." This is a true story. When I was a girl, I was raped. And so I'm thinking that if I'm a boy, then that won't happen to me again. And literally a tear coming down her cheek when she was saying this. And so at that moment, Brian, I didn't feel compelled at all to give her the New Testament scriptures on homosexuality or sexual orientation or any of that stuff. Because I'm standing there as a man, as a Christian man who has the Spirit of God living in me, right? What do I do in this moment? What would Jesus do? That's exactly, I mean, I hate to be cliche, but what would he, if he was standing right there, what would he say to her? I don't think he's gonna talk to her about politics and about morality. I think he's gonna talk about the rape. I think he's gonna talk about what hurt her, like, what got her to this place where she made that decision, because that's more important than the decision, right? The choice is gonna happen, I mean, and maybe it won't, but that's not even the issue. The issue is she got raped and she's broken and she needs help there, right? And what frustrates me, Brian, is that the church should be worried about that. We should be worried about, if it's a real church, the church of Jesus Christ should be finding her or she should be finding them, right? She should go, hey, in my town, where can I go to be loved? Where can I go to get help? Where can I go to, I've got these decisions I'm making, these choices, and oh wait, I can't go to the church because they don't like homosexuals. So, and they don't, and I'm thinking about this. I'm thinking about what this process might look like to me. I need some real answers. I can't go to them because I know what they're going to do. They're going to slam the book at me. They're going to shut me down. They're going to shove this stuff down my throat. So, you know what? I'm not going to go to them. I'll go to my friend who, whatever. I'll go online and get on TikTok and I'll type in, whatever, and I'll find out some answers that way. The church just missed a major opportunity to bless a child, to care about a child because of their dogmatic stand.
Yeah, to do what it's there to do. And, part of the reason I think people, I agree with you 100%, 100%. And I mean, you see this stuff in your work all of the time. It just presents. It's prolific. I mean, I think I listen to you tell me stories week over week over week. I mean, everywhere you go, there's a story like this, right? And I think when the vein of Christianity that says, we need to be politically active, we need to pass laws to, do this or that or the other thing. I mean, there's some good laws to pass, right? Like, like don't kill your neighbor. I mean, that's a good law. I'm all on board with that.
Depends
But
on the neighbor, I think. No, I'm just kidding.
but the motive behind a lot of that, I believe, is it's ego and it's virtue signaling, because rather than doing the hard work of loving people where they're at and letting them find their path to wherever they need to find it to, we want to take the shortcut and we want to feel good because we passed a law that banned this or banned that or the other thing, and we can wash our hands of it and say, okay, our work is done here, when really the work hasn't even begun, because we haven't taken the time to encounter and love and create a safe space where people can experience true love. And I mean, if we're I say I'm a Christian and that's not the bottom line of my motivation of dealing with people is to help them find a place where they experience perfect love, then I need to check my motives.
And I think that, I was talking to my friend who's a pastor out in Florida. He said something to me about, he's praying for me he said, I'm praying for you that your anger would be replaced by grace. And so we get into this conversation because I said, don't pray that. Don't pray for my anger to be replaced, because I don't want my anger to go anywhere. I want to be angry. I'm angry. I am angry. I got angry this week when I had to call 2 schools because I got two. One wasn't a suicide, but it was a girl saying she's cutting her skin, and her girlfriend are in this little pack, and they're cutting their skin together, and she wants out. She doesn't know what to do. So I had to call school because that's something that I have to call school about. So I called the school, talked to them, and then another girl from another school called or emailed me and basically said she's looking to check out. This is a volleyball kid going to college. I mean, sharp kid, not that it matters, but whatever. I mean, you just never know what people are dealing with, right? You look at her the outside and go, she looks like she's fine. I met her. I remember meeting her, and she texted me or emailed me and said, I got all this stuff going on. And I get angry at that, Brian. I get angry that not that that's happening to her, but that again, where's the church? Where are they?
Yeah.
Where are they? Where are they? Like, come on. Where are you? I mean, this is not just one or two. This could be every single school I go to. And this and I'm gonna rant for a minute, but this is like I'm starting up again. So I've done like 6 or 7 schools so far this year. And this is what I pray, Brian. I do this is my prayer. God, I know you're sending me to the 99. You're sending me to the group. You're sending me to the hundreds of kids that are in the school. But I know there's one or two that the Holy Spirit is like going, get that one. Like that one's hurting today. Like that, and it never fails. It's like they find me. They come up afterwards. I flush out stuff. I say things that are going to get them to talk about what's going on. And I got a shoe here, right? And the first thing I do when I'm out of school is I stand up and I say, I hold up a shoe and I go, everybody in this room has a story. Your story matters. And I talk about my story. And then it never fails. They'll come up and they'll talk about their story. Well, this one is crazy. This is a crazy story. I was in Arkansas. Girl comes up to me and she gives me this shoe and she said, I can't talk to you right now. I got volleyball practice. And she takes off. Right. So she goes, read the note in there. So before I read the note, I read the side of the shoe, which had all these things on it. It said hurt, pain, depressed, unheard, fears, unloved, not good enough. And then she put on here, not a daddy's girl. So she's got my attention already, right? Obviously. So I went like this to get the note out and a bullet fell out. I'm not kidding. A bullet fell out. So I read the note. The first thing the note says is, Dear Mike, you came to my school when I was a freshman, and I want to tell you that was the worst day of my life. And then she went on to describe, what was going on in her life at that point. And then she had her dad's gun underneath her pillow that she was going to take her life with that day if something didn't happen. And then I came in and randomly, Brian, randomly, I didn't say this. I don't say it random anymore. I say it purposely, but that day I randomly said, don't let that day win. When you have that day that's just beating the crap out of you, and just don't let it win. If you just have to get through the day, I mean, you may not win the day, but don't let it win. Like, don't let it win because it's gonna get better. And that stupid day talks to you and it tries to talk you out of stuff, and don't let it win. And she got up, went to a trusted adult, got help, and then she wrote in the note, she said, I swore that if I ever saw you again, I'd give you the bullet that was supposed to go through my head that day. I'm not saying that for you, all of you out there like me and think I'm a cool guy. I'm saying that because those kids exist. For every one of this shoe, there's hundreds in a school, hundreds of kids that are dealing with suicidal thoughts. It's the second leading cause of death with teenagers. A church. Did you hear me? Did you hear me? It's the second leading cause of death with kids between the ages of 11 and 19. First being accidents, and the second one being suicide. My goodness. My goodness. There should be 100 of me, Brian, just in the state of Nebraska. We should be hitting schools and talking to kids about their value and loving them. And the church should be pouring money into schools to help, not to change the legislation to get these kids to behave a certain way so their kids can be all, go to school with clean kids. That's ridiculous. We should find those kids that are broken and that are hurting, that come from bad homes and situations that are just horrific, and then get in there and be Jesus to them and be love to them. I'm sorry, I'm ranting, but good
No,
night.
no apology necessary. I agree with you 100%. We've talked about this offline before, whatever. And I just want to say to everybody on this podcast, I am I am, I don't know what to describe it. I'm not apolitical. I'm anti-political. I don't like politicians and the game they play. And I'm being serious here because to me, it's the same game that a lot of the people we're calling out on this podcast are playing. They're using people for their own ego, for their own personal financial gain and whatever. They're not interested in helping these kinds of people. I don't believe. Having said that, you don't know anyone. If you don't encounter people like Mike does on an everyday basis, this is all theoretical to you, right? As soon as you meet somebody,
Changes the game.
the game changes. That's exactly what I was going to say. The game changes and you begin to see people as human beings. Now, I haven't met any of these people that Mike has talked about. I haven't had the privilege of doing that in my life, but I know Mike. I listen to him. I hear his stories and I find a connection to that, to understand that these are real human beings. And if you have a hard time with that, just walk out in your neighborhood and look around at the kids in your neighborhood, right? They're real
Yeah.
human beings like these kids.
Yeah.
It's funny you mentioned before, that you said, what would Jesus do? I don't mean to be cliche. I said to myself when you said that, I said, well, that is a good cliche. They beat it to death, but that's a pretty good metric right there.
Yeah. So I would tell another story. This story right here, this key was crazy. I went to this school again. I'm there for the 99, right? Speaking of the hundreds, whatever, right? It was in New York. It was in only out of New York. And this girl comes up, talks to me afterwards, and just starts describing she's being groomed. She's being groomed by a college professor that her mom works with. Her mom was a professor at a college there in New York. And she was like, "Yeah, this guy, comes and spends time with me and yeah, we make out a little bit." And I'm like, "Wait a minute, how old is this guy?" And so she gets into this and tells me, that he's like in his 30s. He's got a couple kids. He's a Boy Scout leader in town. He's he's a community member, probably a Christian, goes to church, and he's having sex with this 15-year-old. So I said, "Wait," I go, "Do you, is this gonna happen today?" Like, I mean, you said he comes after school and, comes into your driveway and picks you up and you guys go to the park and do stuff. I go, "Is that gonna happen to you today?" She goes, "Yeah." I go, "Honey, I can't let you out of the room. I gotta call the cops." And she got so mad at me, Brian. She started throwing books. I mean, she was pissed. And I felt bad at first because I was like, I didn't, I didn't mean for this to happen. Like a lot of times the stories I get are they've already reported sexual stuff. They've already it's already been taken care of. They're just dealing with the trauma of it. This was real time. This was happening now. And so I opened the door and I called for the principal. Like, I need help. And he comes down and then so we called the mom and called the police and then she was really mad at me. But then 6 months later I get this in the mail. And this is what she said. I gotta put my glasses on. It says, "Mike, you helped me unlock a big secret." I'm gonna start crying. She goes, "The unlocking of this secret was hard, but I'm finding it was worth doing. I'm slowly starting to feel again. I'm getting my life back. Thank you." This was about 10, 15 years ago. And like those, like again, like these are not anomalies. This is happening all the time. These kids are so incredibly vulnerable. And that's one of my heartbeats is to help them not be so vulnerable by knowing that they have value, knowing that they were born with God-given value, intrinsic value. They have that value. And if they can, and we give them this book, Brian. We don't sell this to kids. We give this book to kids. Like anybody that wants this book gets a book. And we actually send them a download book. I give a lot of these hard copies away because and it's not the Bible or anything. I can't share religious stuff in schools, but I can help kids know that they were born with values so they're not so vulnerable to these predators that are out there. And then I can't help but think the church should be doing that. Church, you should be buying these books so I can give these to kids. We'll take care of it. I don't need you, but we should be doing that. That's what the church should be doing. And Brian, I've had to circumvent the church. I asked when I first started doing this, I asked churches to help me pay for books. And they were like, "Well, unless we can, unless you can get them plugged into our church, we really don't have the resources to do that kind of stuff with." Okay. All right. Then I'm just gonna bypass you. I'm not gonna go to you, churches. And sometimes when I'm doing church, when I'm doing schools, the youth pastor will show up because somebody calls him and has, well, why didn't you call us and let us? Because you're gonna ask me to give you the list of kids that so you can go plug them into your church and you can feel good about yourself and you can get your like your spiritual high on. You're not just there to love kids. You're there because you want to harvest them. And I know there's a fine line there, but it just gets so bait and switch and so weird that I don't even work with churches anymore because they don't want to love the kids. They want to harvest them. They want to own them. And I can't, I don't want any part of that.
Yeah. And I think you said it well there, and I think that that reveals the motive. Now, do I think that every church is like that? No. However, do I think that the well's been poisoned with having to count and having numbers and all of those kinds of things? We talked, I don't remember if it was online, we talked about this concept of soul winning, right? Which is just code for being able to count, being able to count. And my challenge is what happens when those kids get there? Youth pastor, what happens if a kid comes into your church and, they are exhibiting this or that behavior that, you think is, you know, aberrant according to your moral code? It's like, how long are you going to put up with that? And I say it that way because that's kind of their attitude. It's like, okay, we'll live with this a little bit, but they're going to have to change and become like us. It's like, no, you know what? You live with that person and you suffer long. I'll use a Bible word. You suffer long with that person until they find, the peace and the inner things that they need to find to help them get through their suffering. But we're not about that. The church isn't about that. It's about creating this. It's assimilating people into the Borg, right? For all you Star Trek fans out there. And I'm sure there are groups out there that are different than that. But in our experience, Mike, I mean, holy cow, that is the most benign expression or lack of expression of what we see. Then you dial it up and you have, the Jeannie Mayos of the world and, the people that are out there. And I'm using her as an icon of this, but the people who are out there that are looking for vulnerable people so they can leverage their vulnerability to their benefit. That's a whole nother level of just grossness, but that projects across the entire church. And I don't understand why. I'm talking about the greater picture of what we're doing with this podcast. I don't understand why more so-called leaders in Christian churches aren't standing up saying, hey, look, you know what, we're going to call this out. Because let's say that they have the right motive. They want to do the kinds of things in their churches that you're doing in those schools. You got to deal with this problem because you know what? That's the bright light in the room. And that's what people are looking at. And that's what keeping people from you. And I'm going to rant a little bit here. Christians walk around in this country acting like they're persecuted, right? Because, the government won't pass this law or that law that, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, give it up. I mean, if you're an American Christian and you think you're persecuted, you might want to just check yourself. Okay.
Or read the Bible, go back to what a martyr really looks like, you know? What persecution really looks like.
Right.
Just go overseas, go over to, countries that really are oppressing Christians, You're just mad because they're not going by your playbook, right?
You're not getting away.
You know, here's the Christian playbook, right? This is what you get handed this. I spoke one time in a church and I brought this in and I held this up and I said, this is what most Christians end up getting, right? Is you're not getting a a path to hear God and to have a transformation in your heart. You're getting a playbook that says, okay, if you're a Christian now, you have to be Republican, especially in this country, right? You got to watch Fox News. You got to care about these things. You got to hate these people. And then, Brian, and when did Christians think start thinking it was okay to hate the world, right? To
Right.
hate the world.
Right.
We hate the the people that are transitioning. We hate all these groups, and that's in the playbook, right? That says that if you're going to be a Christian, you can't really, that little girl that told me she was transitioning, I should, now she's my enemy because that, she's doing something anti-Christian. So, she's going to pollute our schools and she's going to pollute our lives. And, so how impotent are you? How weak are you that you're gonna let this little 14-year-old girl rule your life, like basically push you into some kind of dogma that's gonna hurt her because you can't handle her. Your love should be so your revelation of God and love that you have in your heart should be so strong that that it you can handle being in a room with her, right? You shouldn't be intimidated by her. You shouldn't be intimidated by these groups. We shouldn't be mad at these people. And by the way, Christians, your hero, Jesus Christ, wasn't, right? He wasn't.
Right.
He's your hero. He's your standard. He wasn't. He could be in a room with Zacchaeus. He could be in a room with the prostitutes. He could and not get tempted. Or no Christian, right? I mean, he could be in a room with these people that were so-called in society put down. Basically they were the dregs of society. They were the sinners, right? He could be in a room with them and not be influenced by them. He let his influence and his love overwhelm them. But if you're not overwhelming the world, then you're gonna target them and attack them. So that to me tells me, Christian, that you don't have Jesus Christ in your heart. You have Christian morality in your heart. You have the playbook. And you're going after people with your playbook and you're smacking them over the head with it. And you know what? You're no good to me. You're no good to me. I don't need you. I don't need you in my life. I'm getting pissed off, right? Because I need the real Christians in the schools with me. I need the people that are gonna let love overwhelm these kids.
Yeah. Yeah. I cannot argue with any of that. I'm on board with you there. And I mean, let's be clear. This is hard. This seems hard work. You don't have to go out and, start a business and do what Mike does. I mean, thank God, Mike, and hopefully more people out there are doing that. But, so Mike, this might surprise you, but I can be a real asshole.
Shocking. Shocking.
For my part, I just try to practice this in my everyday life. Because when I practice it in my everyday life, it bleeds out. And I'm not greatly successful. I mean, people out there will tell you stories about, when I fail. But the point is, and I love what you said, is that you're not representing Jesus. You're representing your own brand of morality that you claim that you're getting from your faith. That's a real challenge. How are we going to live? How are we going to live if we really are going to care about people? Make a difference in the world. Which I think that's what if you're a Christian, I think this is all about. When I say make a difference in the world, I don't mean, change the laws or this or that kind of thing. I'm talking about individuals changing things. There was a psychologist, his name was Carl Jung, and I mean, he's very famous. A lot of people have probably heard about him. And he had this concept that the way you change the world is that you change yourself, and then you begin to impact the people around you. And I thought, that's brilliant. That's really brilliant. That's what I'm talking about, I
Right.
guess.
Right. I mean, Jesus had an open air talks, right? And so Charlie Kirk was open air, you know, arguing with people. And I don't I'm not gonna get into what I think about that. But I do wanna say this. When Jesus was out in the open, Sermon on the Mount, Matthew chapter 5, when he's out there talking to people, he wasn't blasting the world. He was making people look inside themselves, right? Like, it says this, but it's this, right? Like, look inside of you. Like, look, see where the darkness is in you and expose that. And that's what I don't hear Christians in America doing. I don't hear that, like, let's look at ourselves and see where we can be better. We're telling the world they need to be better, and that's what Ron Howard was saying. You're
Yeah.
telling me how to be better. You're telling me, but you're not investing in me. You don't care about me. You just want me to be clean so your world will be clean and your kids can go to a nice clean school and you'll feel safe. That's not the same thing as the love of God. That is not the love of God.
Right.
That's just morality trying to paint a picture of what it should look like. And I don't think that's the heart of Jesus Christ. I don't.
Right. Right. And I think it's interesting. I mean, I'll just full disclosure, not a big Charlie Kirk fan. Don't think he's a martyr for the faith or anything like that. I think what happened to him was tragic. I think what happened to the state legislator in Minnesota 3 months ago when she and her husband were killed, that was tragic. I think when Nancy Pelosi's husband got attacked by a dude with a hammer, that was tragic. I think the lesson we need to learn here is that hate is prolific. And these things are done out of hate. And when you mentioned this a few minutes ago, is that when the church adopts this posture that these are the groups that we need to hate, then we are just fueling those fires. Directly, indirectly, doesn't matter. I'm not saying it's, the church's fault that any of these things happen, but I'm saying it has an impact on the culture and the atmosphere, because there is this entity that is supposed to represent true unconditional love now all of a sudden has as one of its primary pages in its playbook hate. Then we've got a problem. We've got a
Yeah.
problem. I'd love to see that fixed.
And those of you that are watching Fox News, I've watched it from time to time, and I hear them talk about Jesus, and some of them have their faith in Christ, and they'll mention that on the air. And then the same show, the same, segment, they'll start like Brian said, they'll start making certain groups their enemies and using language that's, violent, right? They use those words that are just mean, they're mean. So I'm like, yeah, they love Jesus, but they're being mean to these groups. And again, I don't see Jesus doing that. I just don't see him doing that. The only people he was really mean to were them, the people that were trying to push morality on people. The people who were trying to say, hey, this is the way you should live. He has a burden. Carry this burden. These are the rules. Go by the rules. And he had a problem with those people,
Yeah.
and so do I.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's interesting, Mike. We talked about this at the top of the podcast, but if we want to talk about a Bible story, right at the end, the Romans were going to kill Jesus, and they said, "Well, let's give them a choice. We got to crucify somebody today. Let's give them a choice." And they drug out Jesus, who was nonviolent, peaceful, man of peace, man of love. And they drug out this guy named Barabbas. And Barabbas, if you've been curious enough about anything, he was a Roman killer. He was a violent revolutionary. He wanted to kick the Romans out by force. And
Bring
we
his
all,
morality in, bring the Jewish morality in,
right,
right?
right. And we all know the story. When given the choice, who did they pick? They picked Barabbas. And I can remember talking to a pastor friend of mine and saying, like, you know what? In the church today, I think we're that crowd. I think the church would choose Barabbas. And that makes me my heart is heavy over
Yeah,
that.
yeah. Here's a beautiful man, Jesus Christ, who is saying the kingdom of God is inside, and you're gonna change people by bringing that kind of love into their lives, which is individual. It's not a sweeping, legislative law or whatever, or some morality that just gets, put into the social norm. It's loving people
Right.
right where they're at, which is harder. So, yeah, I mean, that's why we want Barabbas, because Barabbas will just do it for us, right? He's just gonna come get it, and overtake, and he's gonna get his troops rallied up and get everybody fired up. But Jesus is saying, no, I don't want you to do it that way. I want you to go one at a time. Go after the one, not the 99. Leave the 99. Go after the one, and take care of that person. Go get that one that's lost. Go get that one that's confused. Go get that one that's in a school right now with a razor blade up against her wrist because she doesn't know what the hell to do with her life. Like, go get her.
Yeah.
Go get her.
Yeah. Yeah. And don't counter, help her.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mike,
Sorry.
yeah, no, that's really where it's at. I love the fact that you have a lot of gravity because you see this day in and day out. And and that's what's important. You keep talking about the 99. That's what Jesus did, right? He picked out the one. Who's the one? Who's the one? Now, we've talked a lot about church and a lot about the Bible and a lot about Jesus. And I just want to say here, I know a lot of people, and we've talked to a lot of people who say, you know what? I will never go to a church again. I don't read the Bible anymore. I'm still interested in being spiritual. I want to, connect with that ethos of loving people, but don't even say Christianity to me because there's too much baggage with that. And I don't want to go to church because I don't want to serve that God. And I just want to say to all of you, I don't want to serve that God either, because that God is no God in terms of what I understand perfect love to be. And you know what? This isn't about going to church. This isn't about having a fish on your bumper. This isn't about, reading your Bible every day. This isn't about having your devotions. This isn't about any of that. This is about finding our way in the world with something that's true, that is, powerful and meaningful and transformational. And I'm just here to say that whatever you call it, I'm not picturing Jesus up in heaven offended because he's not getting top billing on, the pursuit of truth and love in your life. So I want people to understand. I think, Mike, you're in line with me there, but that's real. It's real that people have had enough with Christianity because of those kinds of Christians we're talking about. And while it's tragic, it's real. And I just want to say, I get it. I've been there. I still have one foot in that world, by the way. So
Yeah. I don't go to church. And I could go, there's a good church in my town I could go to, and maybe I will someday, but I'm just not there. I can't do Jesus in a box. I just can't. Not yet. Not yet. Maybe. I don't know. I'm just gonna go with the flow. But no, I echo that. Like I think that I'm in church. I'm in my church. I'll be going to 5 schools this week. I have 5 schools. I'm in a school every day this week. That's my church. I mean, that's the way I look at it. I mean, I don't bring church to schools. I don't bring religious messages, but I look at it like that. That's my people. That's where I'm gonna go. I'm gonna make them laugh because I'm funny as hell. I'm gonna make them laugh. I'm gonna make them cry. I'm gonna bring them on a roller coaster. I'm a roller coaster speaker. We go up, we go down, we go around, we go everywhere, and we land at truth. The truth is, they have value no matter what. You can put a name on it. You can find the address to it if you want. That's up to you, right? That's why I even say that. I say, look, if you believe in God, you believe in the universe, that's your call. But the bottom line is everybody is born with value. You have intrinsic value, and we're born with it, and you can't lose it. You can surrender it, and some people do, but you can't lose it. You can't lose it. It doesn't nobody could take it from you. It's yours. And you have to either walk in it or you're chasing it, right? And most teenagers are chasing it. They're looking for that value so bad. And we can help them by showing them that they already have it, right? The cruelest joke in the world to me is that you're looking for something you already have, right? You already have that value. And so if I can help them see that, then things change. Then behavior changes. Lo and behold, like their behavior is going to change because they're going to want to invest in themselves. They're going to want to stop doing the bad stuff because they see vision for their lives. They see that they have value no matter what, right? So and they want to invest in that. And so we get the cart before the horse. We want them to invest in that before they see that they have value, which is ridiculous. That's why they're killing themselves and they're on meds and they got anxiety and fear because they don't know that they're okay. They're okay right now. They're okay. You're okay.
yeah, yep, yep.
Brian, you got me going today.
I like it when I get you going.
Ew. All right. Well, hey, thanks everybody for tolerating us today. We are still just pursuing truth. That's what Brian and I are doing, just trying to tell the truth and help people see again that they have value, that God gave it to them, and they can figure out what that looks like, and they have the right to do that. And so, not forcing anything on anybody. But Brian, close us up.
All right, everybody. I hope this has been helpful to some folks. One closing thought is that the lack of understanding of people's inherent value, I think, makes them easy pickings for some of the predators that we talk about on this podcast, which is why I think what we talked about today is so important and coincides with that word. It's probably the most important thing that we can talk about. because if they're out there and there's no fish in the pond, then their game is over. So this is really important stuff. But we appreciate you putting up with us and tuning in and being on this journey. Please, if you have any comments, objections, criticisms, smart remarks, send them our way. We'll be happy to read them and maybe respond to them in a kind
Maybe.
way.
Hey, by the way, we are going to be putting out a newsletter, a Groomed newsletter, just to keep people informed of what's going on, what we're doing, in print form. So, we'll give you some more information about that soon. If you ordered a book, Value Up, you're already on our email mailing list. We'll give you an idea of how to get on that mailing list if you want to be on it. If you haven't ordered a book, we will help you out with that. But I just want to give you a heads up that that's going to be happening. So look for that soon. All right, everybody, have a great week.
All right. See y'all.